It is exactly 31 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to JKLIVE Live here at Citizen Television. On the bench tonight, the man who sits at the heartbeat of the government. That's right, the Principal Secretary for Internal Security and National Administration, Dr. Raymond Omollo. By the way, it's his very first interview since he was appointed more than 2 years ago. Oh, did I mention? He's in charge of all the preparations for Jamhuri Day tomorrow. So this man probably hasn't slept for the last 48 hours. But we're going to ask him some questions. And here we go. P.S. Karibu Sana, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
So yesterday during the femicide march in town, right? It was disrupted by police and tear gas and all that. And there's a message from the U.S. Embassy on X or Twitter. It says, it is regrettable and concerning to see police action against Kenyans exercising their constitutional rights to assemble and protest peacefully. Now, it goes on to say, on International Human Rights Day and every day, the United States supports efforts to end a femicide, KE, and protect human rights of all people. So the question is, why such the high-handedness, Mana PS?
Jeff, I think yesterday's events were pretty much unfortunate, to say the least. And one happening on such an important day, it's definitely just shows part of the challenge that we have around policing. And looking at the people who are out there demonstrating, of course, we've had a series of concerns across the country over the last few days on issues around femicide. Yeah. And for me, it's a question where you're saying things just didn't go right. It's not something that we would want to say that is acceptable. We've had conversations with the Inspector General of Police, and it's regrettable. It is something that should not have happened in the first place. When you think about it, at times you could look at it from the point where you're a parent, you're trying to punish a child, but in the process, out of that enthusiasm, you actually go overboard, and then it becomes something that becomes uncontrollable. It is something that we highly regret that yeah. happened.
Speaking of going overboard, those who have gone overboard, will they be held accountable?
Jeff, we have the processes, internal processes within the structure of the police. And as you know, there is the entire structure which is under the command of the Inspector General of Police. And what we expect is that anyone found culpable definitely has to be taken through the legal process and the established protocols. Yeah.
And you've seen since June, the Gen Z process in June, there's a wave of police brutality. And you saw that story we did earlier on today. There's a policeman who was charged in court with the killing of Rex Masai and others. Is that concerning?
Jeff, I think there's a way we could look at it. There is the bit about the cases that like what you've mentioned. And we must admit as a country that over the years there's been a lot of improvement in terms of policing. The way the police are operating today is definitely better than it was 10 years ago. Speaking to the improvements that we've had in terms of an accountability, we have the Independent Police Oversight Authority, which has really done quite a good job. Interestingly, when you look at the statistics, we have about 110,000 police officers to look after the 50+ million of us. Over the last 1 year, IPOA has taken about 225 cases to court, with half of that being dismissed. Now, if you look at what then they've ended up prosecuting positively, if you comparatively look at it against the numbers, you are looking at less than 0.02 2% of the cases. Just to try and maybe put things into context, yes, we have these isolated cases, and also we take comfort as a country that they are being followed up and action is being taken. On the other side, there's a huge amount of good things that our police officers are doing in helping to keep us safe, and it is important that we sustain those gains over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we switch gears and go on to the National Government Administration Office, also known as NGAO, right?
Yeah.
Your thoughts? I mean, have there been success stories that you can point out to? Because, okay, if we talk about fertilizer,
yeah,
there's been controversy. And you know that, we know that, everybody knows that.
Jeff, yes, there've been controversy. But it's always also important to try and look at the bigger picture. For the first time in a very long time as a country, we are not importing maize. We are not importing sugar. We are not importing a number of basic food supplies. And this is largely attributable to the interventions that the government has made with the fertilizer subsidy programs. And the National Government Administration officers have been at the heart of the implementation of this program. One, starting with the registration of farmers. For the first time in a record 2 weeks, we were able, using this NGAO network, to register more than 5 million farmers across the country, knowing even the amount of the acreage of land that each farmer has, the kind of crops that they plant. So when you look at how useful this cadre of officers are, you don't actually need to actually look further because the results are there for us to see. But beyond what has happened within the agriculture sector, there is also a lot of work that has been done in the education space in terms of looking at the transition of children from primary to high school, now junior secondary school. And we are almost at 100% transition rate. This is largely courtesy of the work that the National Government Administration officers have been able to do over time, working very closely with the Ministry of Education. There's a coordination of exam uptake and distribution across the country. They're always at the heart of it. The distribution centers are domiciled and under the supervision of the Deputy County Commissioners, working together with the sub-county education, directors of education, working closely with the teachers. And even if you look at the amount or the number of cases that eventually end up as reported as cases of malpractice, they are significantly reduced.
Is it more success than failures?
There is more success in terms of when you look at the interventions that these cadre of officers have been able to undertake over the last 10 or so years with the new constitutional dispensation. Yeah. Beyond, of course, education, there is general issues around security in terms of coordination of the security infrastructure. So at the regional levels, you have the regional security intelligence committees that are chaired by the regional commissioners. You go to the counties, you have the county security intelligence committees. When you go to the lower levels at the locations and the sub-locations and the villages, then you have what we call the peace committees. And these officers have been able to coordinate all the players, both within and outside government, just to be able to help in coordinating matters to do with security, but also implementation of various government programs. Yeah. At the same time, they also act as that face that links what is happening on the ground in terms of feedback mechanism, whether certain government programs are effective or not. Jeff, even when you think about some of the cases that we are grappling with, whether it's femicide or criminal activities, the first person who would easily get to know what is happening is the local chief, is the assistant chief, is the village elder. So even before things go out of hand, we have an opportunity to address it. What we need to do going forward, as a State Department and Ministry, we are working on a policy around policing, which would broadly help us shape how we intervene so that we significantly address the very numerous cases that we see from time to time.
Yeah. Speaking of femicide, I'm going to get back to that real quick. There was a case of a gentleman, his name was Collins Jumaisi Halusha. He reportedly, allegedly, killed 42 women. He confessed, and he was arrested. And then days later, he literally walked out of jail. What's the latest on that?
Jeff, you know, just the way you've described it. So number one is that for one person to consistently kill one person after another until you get to 42, apart from just it being a criminal act, you probably need to think about it also. Are we also dealing with a mental issue? You're probably not dealing with someone who is normal in the sense of a human being. There was, of course, conviction, someone taken to jail, and I would not want, of course, to speak to the other actors within the whole process of the justice system. But for me, it speaks to just the challenge we have as a society. How is it possible that someone would just kill 42 people over time? If one is not too much, then you're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40. And where is everybody? Where is the family? Where is the community? Where is the society? And I think it speaks to a much bigger problem, which is societal, that we really need to address ourselves to. Yeah. And I've spoken about the mental health issues. If you look at...
Could I ask, where's the government in all this?
Correct. The government is actually you and me, in the context that without you, there's no government. So there's definitely a responsibility on the part of the executive, that is the police, that is people like myself who are running the State Department. But then there is also the role of people like yourself, Jeff, who are in the media, who have also a responsibility to help us work together to address and also to highlight some of these issues.
Yeah. Let's switch gears and go to the former CJ David Maraga's task force report on police reforms. Where are we on that? I mean, usually task force reports are written, they're presented in a fantastic ceremony, and then they're put on a shelf and they gather dust.
So, Jeff, first of all, one thing you have to give to this administration is the ability to follow up on its commitments. And one of the first assignments that President Ruto did was, after committing to address the challenges that were there within the policing sector, was to set up the Maraga Task Force that took a lot of time to look into the issues around the welfare and just operations within the different services. And it was not just the police. They looked at the National Youth Service as well as the Kenya Prison Service. And after a good job that the team did, led by Maraga, they presented the report that had a raft of recommendations, almost 600 of them, cutting across the three services. Within the National Police Service, there were 271 recommendations. Of those recommendations, broadly classified, there are those that are administrative in nature. Then there are those that are legal, that requires that we make certain changes to the existing laws. And then there are those that require infusion of resources. And as we speak today, the ones that are administrative in nature are already underway. The ones that speak to issues around promotions, the ones that speak to issues around just transfers of officers. Now, there are also the ones that are financial in nature. And again, some of those we're already implementing, like the issues around the salaries and remuneration for the police officers. We have faced it to be done over a 3-year period, with the first year implementing 20%, because the recommendation was that we improve the salaries by between 40% for the lower cadre officers to up to about 3-4% for the officers in the higher ranks. And as we speak today, this current financial year, we're implementing the first phase of that, which has seen officers have an increment of up to 20%. And in the next financial year, we will do 10%, and the third or the last financial year, we do the last 10%.
What does that translate into in Kenya shillings, sort of, if it's 20%?
So in absolute terms, the least or the entry-level officer was coming in at 20,000 or thereabout. With a 20% increment, you're looking at quantitatively a 4,000 increase in their basic pay. And then, of course, you graduate it based on the levels that the officers are in. Yeah.
Pana PS, I want to take a break, come back. We have some business and sports to do, but we're going to come back and talk about more about these police reforms. Because we want to talk about underfunding. We want to talk about corruption. We want to talk about abductions and extrajudicial killings. And of course, you know, this work you've been doing the last few weeks, tomorrow's celebrations, you've been busy doing with Jamhuri Day celebrations. We're going to talk about all of that. And by the way, for your first interview, you're doing okay.
Thank you.
You're doing all right.
Good.
Oh, let's not forget Nakada and alcoholism and what you guys are doing to combat that, right?
Yeah.
Especially in Central Province. My people are in trouble.
I think we're making good progress.
And then there's bars in neighborhoods that are just destroying all the rules, ignoring all the rules. We need to talk about that. We've got the Principal Secretary for Internal Security and National Administration, Dr. Raymond Omollo. His very first interview since he was appointed more than 2 years. By the way, why didn't you do an interview before? Why is this the first?
You didn't call me.
Good answer. I like that. Good answer. What are your concerns? What are your comments? What are your questions? At Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag is JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back. In the meantime, coming up,